Hey guys, Pastor Greg Locke here.
Hello, Pastor. What great wisdom do you bring to bestow upon us today?
So the whole transgender, gender-neutral situation, so people don't get offended, has crept its way heavily into the church, both here in America and over in Europe.
Yeah, that does not really surprise me at all. When you're a member of an international organized religion that has been unambiguously hostile towards the LGBTQ+ community for centuries, and are only now finally the ones who are outside of the cultural norm by discriminating against such people, one would naturally expect that to be an issue that creeps its way into your churches. So, what specifically has you all pissy this morning, Greg?
People are like, let's not call God he or him, let's say she, or let's say it.
Oh, fuck, it's even dumber than I thought.
First of all, God's not an it. He's an actual physical personality.
Now, while that may be true in accordance with your magical book of fairy tales, Greg, you can't prove that it is demonstrably true in reality. You can't even manage to demonstrably prove that a deity so much as exists, let alone tell me that it has a distinct personality or has a specific gender identity that it subscribes to.
Secondarily, God is not a woman. There is not one shred of evidence anywhere in the context of the Bible that would ever make you think that God is a woman. He's called Father, 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 he, him, him.
Oh, so once again, we're making an inference about the preferred gender identity of a supposedly real deity just based on your choice book of fairy tales? Hold on, Greg, you have yet to give me any reason to believe that a god exists, let alone that a god that may exist correlates in any way to the depiction of God found in your choice fables. Either way, fuck it, we'll grant you that point, and we'll focus only on your choice deity going forward. And I'll grant you that at no point in the Bible is there any suggestion that I have been able to find that Yahweh identifies as anything other than masculine.
People are like, well, you ought to give room for the fact that some people just believe that God is perhaps a woman or he's gender neutral. Well, you ought to leave room for the fact that I think you're an idiot to believe such nonsense.
Oh, really? So you're telling me that a being with infinite power and the ability to warp reality as it sees fit would be unable to change its gender identity? Because that would explain why you would consider anybody holding that opinion to be an idiot. It would make sense if you have some sort of special knowledge that has been withheld from the rest of us, which proves that a being like that is completely incapable of changing its gender identity. And if that is the case, and if even a being that powerful cannot actively change the way they identify themselves, then maybe it's time to consider the possibility that telling trans women to act like men and trans men to act like women is just as ridiculous to them as calling God a woman is to you. You grew up being exposed to God as a masculine father figure. You grew up that way, and that's the only way that you ever have been or ever will be able to think of God. Even if Yahweh were to appear to you as a woman someday, you would deny it because you've always known God to be a man. On the other hand, many transgender individuals grew up knowing that something felt wrong with the way they were presenting themselves. Maybe they didn't know why for a considerable amount of time, but something in the back of their mind always told them that by conforming to the lifestyle of their biological sex, they were denying a part of who they truly were. And eventually, when they figure out who they're meant to be, they know that they are a man or a woman, regardless of whether or not it matches the sex that they were assigned at birth. Of course, none of this is particularly relevant to this response, but just something that I think you may benefit from considering, Greg.
There's 791,328 words in the Bible. That's 31,101 verses, 1,189 chapters.
Wow, somebody went to seminary school and got a useless degree in Mother Goose.
And not one, did you hear me? Not one even remotely alludes to the fact that God could ever be a woman. From Genesis 1:1 to Revelation 22:21, God is always referenced in the male gender.
Okay, I just have to point out the fact that despite knowing exactly how many words, verses, and chapters are in the whole Bible, Greg just presumably had to cut away to check how many chapters and verses were in the book of Revelation.
Okay, let me tell you something. Jesus knows what bathroom to use at Target, thank you very much.
Now, putting aside the ridiculous fact that you seem to care more about how other people take a shit than you do about how you personally take a shit, I'm really curious now if Jesus were to appear before you in a public place and you were 100% convinced that he really truly was Jesus, and he walked into the women's restroom, would you stop him or would you simply allow him to take a shit in the women's room? If you ever see this video, Greg, and respond to any part of it, this is the question that I'm most curious about. Would you let Jesus use a women's restroom if it's what he wanted to do? Because either way you answer that question, you will either have to reevaluate some aspect of your beliefs or act in a way that is contradictory to them.
This is nothing more than a blatant assault upon evangelical Christianity.
Okay, Greg, if your religion is so fragile that somebody calling your deity female makes you feel as if there's an organized attack being put out against you and the people who believe as you do, you really need to reach deep into your ass and pull out whatever stick you shoved up there during seminary. You are not a culturally repressed victim. You are an evangelical Christian, the single largest religious subset in this entire goddamn country. Just because people have wised up and begun to stop taking every word that their pastors say as unquestionable doctrine does not mean that you are repressed. No matter how much you would love to play the victim card and beg for sympathy as your outdated, bigoted beliefs become less and less acceptable in American society, you have absolutely no legitimate justification for doing so, and at least most people realize that.
I don't see you doing this nonsense to Muslims. Why don't you say Muhammad or Allah was a woman? See what Islam thinks about that nonsense.
Just because you are buried so deeply in your own beliefs that you aren't able to see something happen, that does not negate the fact that it does in fact happen. And just in case you ever find this video and can manage to pull your head out of your own ass long enough to get a view of the screen, here are some examples. Again, you are not being repressed. You only feel like you are because when a group has been held higher than all the ones around them for centuries, a move towards equality can feel a hell of a lot like losing unless you're actively aware of the fact that your group does not exist in a vacuum.
Okay, just in case your little snowflake feelings haven't been offended enough, let me remind you, Jesus is a man, God is a father. It's that simple. The God of the Bible is not an it, and he's certainly not a woman. He does not suffer from multiple personality disorder. So to all of you gender-neutral hippies that are afraid to offend people by using demonstrative pronouns, I'm here to tell you, I'm going to stand with the God of the Bible, not with your unbiblical nonsense.
And I am going to live my life based on things that are evident in reality rather than things that are only evident in a book of fairy tales. Anyway, that's the end of this quick response. Maybe I'll make a habit of this and make short response videos like these whenever Greg Locke shows up on YouTube to share his quote-unquote knowledge with the world. Be sure to let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see me respond to more of Greg in the future. Check the links in the description to visit the God Is Not Good official merch store and public Discord servers, and as always, have a blessed day, fellow heathens.